this week's episode of the Goodrum Show with me, Chris Goodrum. Firstly, as per usual, a big thank you to everybody that watched the last episode of the show, liked, commented, all that kind of stuff. Very, very much appreciated. Apologies for no show last week. I think it was just a case of life getting in the way of art, as they say, but we're all back to normal now. So this week, as you can see from the title page, we're looking at another of the new Lowlands distilleries, this time taking another look at the Lindores Abbey distillery. You may well recall that I introduced the distillery to you guys about 2 years ago. But back then there was no core bottling. Patrick at the distillery kindly sent me some samples of, if you remember rightly, the new make, the Aqua Vitae that they were producing, and 3 samples of the component parts which were going to be blended together to create their core bottling. So there was an ex-Bourbon, ex-Sherry and ex-STR cask matured spirit, and fast forward 2 years and we now have a core release, and the distillery did indeed release those component parts, and under the range the casks of Lindores. Now they weren't quite at cask strength, they were bottled at 49.4 ABV, and obviously I have those samples here today, so it's going to be cool to sort of come back to them, I suppose, but now I have a sample of the sort of the end product, so hopefully that will yeah, that'll be really, really cool. The other reason for the episode of the show was that the final sample, which is a brand new bottling called the Friar John Core Chapter 1. This is a cask strength release. Now apparently Friar John Core was a historical figure. He was the head of the Tyrannesian monks, or the order of Tyrannesian monks, that inhabited the abbey when it was a monastic building rather than a ruin. He appears in the first written evidence of, we'll call it whisky production in Scotland, because he appears in the Exchequer Rolls of 1494 when King James IV gave an order to present him with 8 bowls of malt to produce Aqua Vitae with. So yeah, really cool stuff, really, isn't it? You know, it's always nice to have a sort of, although the sort of the distillery, the current distillery is not really their history, but you know, it's kind of tied in, shall we say, with the history of the abbey and all that kind of stuff. So pretty cool. I mean, I find that sort of historical stuff really intriguing, but of course obviously you don't really need to be into the historical stuff. If you just enjoy good whiskey, then then fine, you know, absolutely fine. So yeah, not really a great deal else to say about the distillery, apart from, again, big thank you to Patrick for the majority of the samples for today's episode of the show, and obviously to the guys at the distillery. It's very, very much appreciated. So yeah, like I said, not a great deal else to say. Obviously you can find out more information online. Link to their website is in the box below as per normal. So let's just take a look at today's line. It's like the forces that right, okay, so as I said, we now have the component parts that we can taste, and so this is the Cask of Lindores Bourbon edition, bottled at 49.4. Next bottling we'll be looking at is the STR cask, again bottled at 49.4. Then we're going to move on to the sherry component, so this would be the sherry cask, again bottled at 49.4. And then obviously I've got a sample of the core release, the sort of the title, aptly titled MCDXCIV. Yeah, nifty little name, trips off the tongue, doesn't it? This time bottled at 46%. And as I was saying, the brand spanking new release, this is the Friar John Core Chapter 1, bottled at, well, are you sitting comfortably, 60.2%. Oof, mother, that's pretty much close to what they stick it into the casks at. I think they take a fairly wide cut, if my notes were correct. Yeah, an early cut at the first cut of 76%, and drop it down to about 66. I would imagine they probably then stick it into cask either at about 66 or possibly 63. So it ain't lost an awful lot, shall we say. Anyway, so this is a combination of the three cask types that make up the core release, but also in this instance Montblaziac casks as well. So really quite looking forward to that. So I have a very full butt. Oh, never tire with that joke. Yeah, let's taste some whiskey then, shall we? Sometimes I cry, I look for something. Right, okay, so let's kick off with the bourbon then. Let's see what the nose gives us on this. Quite young. There's a distinct, youthful, almost Toshan-like sort of Turkish Delight, rose Turkish Delight, straw, earth. I think the alcohol is kind of, it's not overly tight, but I think it's kind of suppressing the sort of the fruitiness of the nose. There's a little bit of vanilla, some spices, some tannin, but it is a little on the tight side, shall we say. But very, very appealing. I like it. Let's see what the palate's like. Yep, that alcohol is definitely masking the finish. Does kick off with a little bit more of the oak, the sort of slightly creamy vanilla, and then barley, apricot. Again, yep, a bit tight on the mid palate. Moving into the finish again, getting that youthful rose petally Turkish Delight note. The oak is not quite as grippy, but the alcohol certainly is masking that finish. So let's see if a little drop of water is going to open that one up. It's got nice spiciness on the aftertaste. Now we're getting the estery fruit and getting a little bit of pineapple chunk, pear drop. It's not quite a straw-like and earthy now. It's more like as I was expecting. I mean, you know, they have quite a long fermentation. I think it's about 110, 114 hours, I think. So that they've kind of set out to produce a lovely estery, fruity base spirit. And this has got it in absolute spades. Yeah, just needed a little drop of water just to kind of open it up and soften it a little bit. That's lovely. That really is very, very nice. Let's see what that's on now. That is a beautiful palate. Soft, juicy, apricot, pineapple, a little bit of apple as well. Some caster sugar, barley, a little bit of spice, vanilla. Lost that sort of Turkish Delight youthful note. Really opened out, really long, really succulent and juicy. That's good spirit. I mean, it's not that old, obviously. I mean, the distillery's obviously only been in production since 2017, I think it was. So obviously the spirit is going to be no older than, well, you know, I would guess about 5 or 6. But it's just absolutely delightful. It really is lovely, and yeah, that's a great start. Right, okay, so let's move on to the STR cask. Let's see what the nose gives us on this thing, shall we? Lot of cask influence, obviously. I mean, you certainly see that from the colour. Quite grippy, slightly bitter STR tannins, cinnamon, nutmeg, ginger. It's got a lovely earthiness to it, a lovely natural berry character. There is some barley underneath that, there's some wood smoke, some spice. It is pretty much of the cask, as you would expect. And I mean, there's a light chocolatiness there. I mean, again, it's got a softness, but it's got a sort of, you know, a tightness again sort of down to the ABV. A lovely nose again. Let's see what that's like. Excuse me. Lovely and soft, quite buttery in actual fact. Sort of butter chocolate, or chocolate butter possibly. Some light red berry fruits, a little bit of spice. There's a tightness there, more tannic than alcohol, although the alcohol does slightly mask the finish. It's a little bit longer than the Bourbon cask bottling. Chewy, malty, feels a lot fuller. That the cask is obviously adding weight to the spirit. The tannins are adding some weight and structure, which is what you want from tannins in actual fact. So let's put a little drop of water with it and see what that does to it. Right, so that dials down the cask notes, and it really is quite effusive. It really is. It's more estery than the American oak bottling. White fruit, almost a touch of honey as well. Apricot, pineapple again. Again, it's still got that slight chocolatey tannin note there. The STR cask is still noticeable, but it's less intense. It's less in your face. It's to me, just a little bit more harmonious. Lovely sweetness as well. Let's see what that's on it. Less bitter, still slightly chocolatey, little short. The finish isn't as long as on the American oak bottling. It does it's curtailed a little bit. The spirit feels a little younger, although I'm not getting any of the sort of the rose petal, the Turkish delight. Or maybe there's a little bit of that, just right on the very end. Again, it's lovely. I think this is kind of more of a component, shall we say, than the American oak bottling, and it's definitely cask influenced, obviously, and I think sort of I think you want to be a bit judicious with that in the final blend. Yep, add some sort of chocolatey notes, a little bit of red fruit, a little bit of spice and tannin, but if you go a little bit too far, then obviously you get a little bit too much bitterness. You know, I mean, blending whiskey is great fun. I mean, you know, it's certainly something I would love to do, but I'll just carry on tasting it, I think. Right, okay, so let's move on to the sherry cask. Let's see what the nose gives us on this then, shall we? Oh yes, that's a big sherry monster. Well, I mean, you know, look at the colour of that. I mean, it's not quite black, but it's pretty damn dark, and it's a sherry monster. It's got that kind of slightly boiled sweet kind of sherry character. Certainly, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Penderyn's sherry wood bottling. So there's a lot of sort of, you know, raisinated fruits, wood smoke. Grilled nuts, a little bit of bitter tannin, there's a little bit of milk chocolate, some herbal Oloroso notes, don't really get a great deal of the distillery character. So again, neat, like the STR cask bottling. It's very, very much cask orientated, and yeah, definitely comes across like a component part. Let's see what it passes like. Pure sun-dried raisins. I mean, it really is raisins. A little bit dried plum, fig, toffee, citrus, milk chocolate again, masked. The alcohol is certainly sort of like, you know, curtailing any length on that one. Nice spiciness. Again, I think sort of, you know, when you're using, you know, this kind of intensity of cask, I mean, it's great to have it to play with as a blender, I would imagine. Doesn't quite work so well standing alone, unless of course you happen to like big sherry monsters, because I don't get any distillery character. It is all about the sherry. Let's put a little drop of water with it, see if that coaxes out some distillery character. Obviously first fill sherry, I would guess. It's a bit muted, I think. It's softer. There's a little soapy note, I guess. It is showing up that kind of, it feels even younger than the spirit that's in the STR cask, to be honest with you. And it's not really kind of released any distillery character. It's still the chunky sherry monster. And I must admit, it does kind of leave me a little bit on the cold side, but again, it's kind of, you kind of think, well, this was probably never really destined to be bottled on its own. I mean, you know, no offence to the distillery. I mean, you know, it's an interesting look into the component parts of the core bottling, but the reality is that this was designed to do a job. It was designed to impart a lot of sherry character on the spirit, so that when it was blended together, and hopefully when we get to the next sample, it will show all the harmonious elements of, you know, all the different cask types and the spirit character. So pass on. Soft, slightly more homogeneous, dried fruit, sherry, a little bit of bitter tannin right on the end. Yeah, I mean, as I was saying about the nose, it is a component part. There's nothing really sort of spectacular about it, apart from it is sherry. And so far, you know, my least favoured of the three cask types, it has to be said. But then, would you have expected me to say anything else? And sometimes I believe I can be. Right, okay, so now we're on to the core release. So let's see how they blend all of these cask types together. Lovely, that is a lovely nose. So predominantly dominated by the spirit character and the American oak. I mean, well, I say dominated. I'm not getting sort of like, you know, lashings of creamy vanilla. I'm getting distillery character. I'm getting that sort of. I'm getting the pineapple. I'm getting almost some green fruit, almost gooseberry, barley. There's some underlying sort of dried fruit. There's some underlying sherry and the sort of slightly bitter STR tannins, a little bit of red fruit. They've done a bloody good job. I mean, that is bloody good. I would guess we're looking at somewhere in the region, I would have thought, about 60% American oak and maybe 20% each of the other two casks, because the sherry cask, maybe a little bit more sherry cask than STR cask. It's really nicely balanced. And I mean, whoever blended this together has done, you know, a bloody good job. Incidentally, I mean, I had this on, you know, obviously, as you well know, this has absolutely nothing to do at all to do with the company that employs me. but I put it on as a last month's whiskey tasting evening, and I had obviously 5 other whiskies on, and I put it on as the first whiskey. Now normally that's kind of like a kiss of death for a whiskey, being the first one in a tasting, because by the time you've got to the peat monster at the end, you've kind of forgotten about what the first one was like. And so generally speaking, nobody votes for the first one as sort of whiskey of the evening, but blow me, everybody, pretty much everybody voted for the Lindores Abbey as whiskey of the evening, and there was some other, I had some stiff competition, I can tell you, but you know what? That's because it's a bloody good whiskey at the end of the day. It's reasonably priced, although I think I got an email the other day from Patrick saying, oh, we're putting our prices up, you know, joy. So if you can get hold of a bottle now, I mean, it was kind of, what, 45, something like that, you know, really, really good value. So if you can get hold of a bottle before the price goes up, then get one. Anyway, I'm waffling, let's taste it. That is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. It kicks off with the STR cask in actual fact. I get that sort of slight wininess, red winey fruit, spicy tannin, and then quickly we move into the American oak, we move into the distillery character, we've got the apricot, the apple, the pineapple, the juicy fruit, and then underlying that, maybe coming through just on the mid palate to the finish, you get the sort of like the dried fruit, the sherry cask notes, the spice, a bit more vanilla. I mean, that is a stunningly good whiskey, that, and it's not very old at all. And as we all know, you know, whiskey is ready when it's ready at the end of the day, and it doesn't matter whether it's 5 years old or 50 odd years old. That's just a beautiful whiskey to drink, and yeah, hats off to everyone at Lindores. That's fantastic. Sometimes I dream and nobody does. Right, okay, so on to the final whiskey of the afternoon. This is the brand spanking new Friar John Core, Chapter 1. Love the bottle. I mean, you know, very black. Apparently, I think that the monks wore black, apparently, which is really cool. So they've gone for a real black bottle, which I think is really quite striking. But anyway, it's the juice that counts, so let's see what the nose gives us. Oh, is that tight or is that tight? I mean, you can smell that alcohol. Quite a bit of sherry in actual fact to start off with. Got a lot of spice, earth, a little bit of almost kind of tobacco leaf. There's some apricot, lime, banana. Ooh, that's complex. Getting red and green apple. There's a slight wininess there, a little bit of spice, sort of STR bitterness. That's intriguing. That's interesting. That's tighter than an Atch Chuff, it has to be said. I'm going to look forward to sort of putting a little drop of water with that, because I think it's going to need it, because it is intense. Lovely earthiness, a real natural character. Let's see what it passes like. Wow, that's a remarkably soft. I mean, yeah, okay, there's no finish. I mean, the alcohol has kind of cut that off, which is not a surprise, and it's tingling my tongue, it has to be said. But that's just such to drag out a French word, melange. It's just beautiful. I'm getting sort of ginger, I'm getting spices, dried fruit, red fruit, apple, apricot. Lovely honeyed note on the mid palate, with that sort of slight winey honeyed kind of note, which I'm guessing is probably coming from the Montblazier casks. it's got that lighter, it's not the Sauternes kind of heavy honey, it's that lighter, slightly citric laced honey. And again, I remember picking that up on the Tomatin Montblaziac. It just has that, doesn't quite have that weight of a Sauternes cask. Wow, that is intense. That is a stunning, stunning whiskey. I mean, the complexity is just amazing. And again, you know, we're talking sort of, you know, spirit character. We're talking cask notes. I mean, let's put a little drop of water with that. See what that does to it. That's probably not enough, but you know, well, let's go with what we've done. Okay, so it's kind of pushed down a lot of the cask notes, and so we're getting more barley. It's got a little rose petal note, a little bit of Turkish delight. We are youthful. It's a bit more white fruit. I'm actually getting more of the Montblaziac cask, more of that kind of winey, honey kind of note now. A little bit less of the STR and the sherry, but the sherry is kind of, again, sat there, giving me a little bit of spice, a little bit of dried fruit. Oh, it's just bloody good. I love this nose. It is just really, really complex. It's a nose you kind of have to kind of work at. It's not giving it all to you on a plate. Yeah, you have to kind of delve into it, give it some time, and you know, that's what you want from whiskey. You know, the best whiskies kind of, you know, tease you to start off with and sort of expect you to sort of like do some work rather than just sticking your nose in the glass. So the pass on. Longer, juicier, fruitier, more distillery character, more apricot, pineapple. And again, it's kind of emphasised that kind of winey, honeyed kind of note. The STR cask, the sherry cask are sitting back in the background. A little bit of dried fruit, a little bit of spice, a little bit of red fruit. Lovely length. I mean, that is really lovely. Just a stunning whiskey, it has to be said. Real intensity, and you know, if you like it sort of, you know, whacking around the face, you know, you can taste it neat. Drop a little bit of water in with it, kind of just relaxes it all a little bit, and either way, absolutely stunning whiskey, it has to be said. Available now from all good retailers, as they say. So yeah, do yourself a favour. Obviously, it's a little bit more expensive given the fact that it is, you know, cask strength, but you won't be disappointed. Right, okay, so let's sum today's episode of the show. Firstly, big thank you to the distillery for the samples for today's episode of the show. Support is very much appreciated, and just keep on making bloody good whiskey, guys. That's all I can say. It was the Bourbon cask. I mean, it was obviously ticked all my boxes. It has to be said. It showed all of the yeah. I mean, it did show the distillery character. It was a little bit tight, I suppose, and funnily enough, putting a little drop of water with the STR cask brought out more of the distillery character. But you know, I think the sort of the individual bottlings just show, well, we're all component parts. I mean, yes, I loved the Bourbon cask bottling. Yeah, the STR cask and the sherry cask were kind of components. They didn't totally float my boat. The sherry, but they were sort of what you would expect. You want to sort of use them as kind of parts of the recipe, and it has to be said that the core bottling, the MC whatever, MCDX, it was just stunning, absolutely stunning, lovely whiskey. And like I said, you know, 45 quid or however much it was or is just an absolute steal, just a lovely whiskey, and I can't recommend it highly enough. And the cask strength Friar John Core bottling, again, just stunning. I mean, really good. I mean, you know, I keep banging on about the fact that sort of it doesn't matter how old the spirit is. It's all about, you know, is the juice good? And in this instance, the juice is bloody good. So do yourself a favour. If you've not tasted anything from the distillery, just buy the core bottling. I mean, you know, it's a lovely, lovely whiskey. So yeah, that's this week's episode of the show in the bag. I got an interesting episode lined up for next week. I mean, all my episodes are interesting, I think, but anyway, like I said, if you've not tasted anything from Lindores Abbey, I really suggest you do so, because it is just a lovely whiskey. So all I have to say is good afternoon and good dramming.